They laughed the first day. I remember it clearly, because it was the last time anyone in that room laughed at me. I was standing in Orientation Hall 7 of the Unified Systems Defense Academy. I was the only human among 400 cadets pulled from 31 worlds. Around me stood tall Threxian troopers with thick plating on their bodies. Beside them stood Voskai cadets with 4 arms and fast reflexes. Near the back stood 2 Meridian twins whose skin changed color when they felt strong emotion. When they looked at me, their skin turned bright pink and gold. I did not need a translator to know what that meant. They found me funny. Soft skin, soft bones, soft everything, one of the Threxians said, looking down at me. He was almost twice my height. Command sent us a joke. I did not answer him. I had learned a long time ago that words do not win fights before they start, so I stayed quiet and kept my back straight. Commandant Yarrow walked into the hall a moment later. She was an old soldier with deep scars across her face. She had fought in 3 wars before I was even born. She began reading our files out loud, one by one. When she reached my name, she stopped and looked up. Ward, K, species, human, average lifespan, about 90 years, natural body armor, none, reflex speed, average. She paused and looked around the room. Command placed him here under a new program for species variety. I want everyone to understand that clearly. The laughter came again, soft but clear, rippling through the hall like a wave. I did not move. I did not speak. I simply listened and remembered every sound. That night, alone in my small room, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I trained. I did not train because I wanted to prove something to them. I trained because I wanted to prove something to myself. The days that followed were hard. Every class felt like a test I was not built to pass. In strength training, the Threxians lifted objects 3 times my weight without effort. In speed drills, the Voskai finished courses before I was even halfway through. In academic classes, some cadets absorbed entire books in a single sitting, thanks to minds built for fast learning. I often finished last. Some days I finished so far behind that instructors did not even record my time. But I noticed something important during those early weeks. The other cadets grew tired quickly. Their bodies were built for short bursts of great power, not long stretches of steady effort. When a drill lasted only a few minutes, they were unstoppable. But when a drill lasted for hours, something changed. Their pace slowed. Their focus faded. Mine did not. I did not have the strongest body in that hall. I did not have the fastest legs or the sharpest claws. But I had something else, something that did not show up on any species chart. I had the ability to keep going after everyone else believed they could not. The true test came in our 6th month, an event called the Gauntlet. It was the Academy's oldest and hardest trial, lasting 72 hours without proper rest. Cadets had to cross harsh terrain with shifting gravity, complete difficult tasks, and survive on very little food and water. The trial had a 200-year history, and countless cadets from powerful species had failed it. Before the trial began, cadets placed private bets on how long I would last. Most gave me 12 hours. A few kind ones gave me 20. I finished all 72 hours. I was not the fastest to complete each stage. A Voskai sprinter blazed ahead early on, moving faster than my eyes could follow. But by hour 50, his body gave out from exhaustion, and he could not continue. I passed him on the final stretch, walking steadily while medics carried stronger, faster cadets away on stretchers. When I crossed the final marker, the hall fell completely silent. No one laughed that day. No one spoke at all for a long moment. Commandant Yarrow simply looked at me, then wrote something in her notes and walked away without a word. That night, I understood something clearly for the first time. Humans did not survive on our homeworld by being the strongest creatures. We were not the fastest, nor did we have the sharpest claws or the thickest skin. We survived because we refused to stop, even when logic told us we should. Our history was full of hardship, and every hardship taught us to keep moving forward, no matter how impossible things seemed. Pain became simple information to us, not a stop sign. It told us where to be careful, not when to give up. Word of my performance spread quickly across the academy. Cadets who once called me a joke started watching me during training. Some began quietly asking how I trained. I told them the truth, plain and simple. I did not train to become strong enough to win easily. I trained to make sure I would never be the one who gave up first. As the months passed, life at the academy slowly changed for me. Cadets who once avoided me began inviting me to train beside them. Even the Threxian who had mocked me on the first day eventually asked to join my morning training sessions. I never brought up his old words. There was no need. Actions speak louder in every language across every world. Years moved quickly after that, the way years often do once you are deep inside your own story. I could tell you about difficult missions I took part in after graduation. about long journeys through dangerous environments, and about teams I depended on and who depended on me. But those events are not the heart of this story. The heart of this story is what happened afterward, when I became something more than a soldier. Before Commandant Yarrow retired, she called me into her office for one final conversation. Her face, marked by years of hardship, showed no emotion as she studied me. "You do not fight the way we do, Ward," she said. "You fight like someone who has been losing for thousands of years and refuses to accept defeat. That is not weakness. That is one of the most dangerous traits I have ever seen in a soldier." She paused, letting her words settle. "Teach it to others." Her words stayed with me long after she left the academy. Eventually, I accepted a new role, one I never expected to hold. I became an instructor. At first, I was unsure if I belonged in that role. I was still young by most species standards, and many senior officers doubted a human could train soldiers from stronger, faster species. But I remembered every lesson from my own training, every quiet struggle, every moment I almost gave up but did not. I decided to build a training program based on those lessons, one that focused not on natural strength, but on mental endurance and steady determination. My training method eventually became known across many academies as the Ward Protocol. It was not an easy program, and it was never meant to be comfortable. It challenged cadets to question everything they believed about their own strength. Many cadets arrived confident because of their natural gifts, believing thick skin or fast reflexes would always protect them. My program stripped away that confidence, piece by piece, until only their true willpower remained. Some cadets resented me for it. Word spread that my training was one of the hardest in the galaxy, and many young recruits felt real fear before their first session with me. I understood their fear completely, because I had felt the exact same fear many years earlier in Hall 7. Fear, I learned, is often the first sign that a person is about to discover something new about themselves. Over time, instructors from other worlds began sending their most talented cadets to train under my program, curious to see how they would perform. Many of these cadets arrived certain of their own greatness, having succeeded easily in their home academies. My training tested them in ways they had never experienced. Some adjusted quickly and grew stronger because of it. Others struggled deeply, unable to understand why their natural gifts were not enough anymore. I never enjoyed watching cadets struggle. I understood, better than most, how difficult that struggle could feel. But I also knew that struggle, when handled correctly, built something far more valuable than natural talent ever could. It built resilience, patience, and quiet strength that could not be taken away by injury, misfortune, or fear. One cadet I remember clearly was a young Threxian named Doran, who arrived at my training hall with great confidence. His plating was thick, his strength impressive, and his record from his home academy was nearly perfect. During our first session, he struggled to understand why endurance mattered more than raw power. He grew frustrated after failing a long-distance training exercise that lasted many hours. "I am stronger than anyone here," he said to me one evening, clearly upset. "Why do I keep failing your tests?" I remembered his frustration well, because I once felt something similar, though from the opposite side. "Strength decides who wins a short fight," I told him, "but endurance decides who wins a long war. You have never needed to test the second kind before now." He did not fully understand my words that night, but he continued training anyway. Weeks passed, and slowly, his performance changed. He learned to manage his energy carefully, instead of using all his strength at once. He learned patience during long exercises instead of rushing toward quick victories. By the end of his training, he had become one of the strongest cadets in his group, not because his natural strength had changed, but because his understanding of endurance had grown. Years later, Doran became an instructor himself, teaching younger cadets using many of the same lessons I had once taught him. He often told his students about the human instructor who taught him that strength alone was never enough. I felt proud whenever I heard those stories, though I never needed public credit for them. Watching my lessons continue through others felt far more rewarding than any personal recognition. As more years passed, my reputation grew far beyond what I ever expected. Cadets across many worlds spoke about the Ward Protocol with a mixture of respect and quiet fear. Some called me strict. Others called me the hardest instructor in the galaxy. I never disagreed with either description, because both were true in their own way. But I always reminded my students of one simple fact. My training was strict because life itself could be far stricter, and I wanted them prepared for both. Today, many years after that first day in Hall 7, I stood once again in a training hall, filled with new cadets from many different worlds. The scene looked almost exactly like the one I remembered from my own beginning, filled with tall, powerful creatures and wide, uncertain eyes. Near the front row, a young Threxian cadet, his plating still soft with youth, leaned toward another cadet and whispered something quietly. I did not need advanced hearing to guess what he said. I had heard similar words many years earlier, spoken about myself. A Meridian cadet near the front raised her hand nervously, her skin flickering a soft, uncertain blue. "Instructor Ward," she said carefully. "Is it true you finished the old gauntlet without stopping? All 72 hours? "It is true," I answered simply. "They say humans were supposed to be the weakest species here," she continued. "Were you not afraid, being the only one?" I thought back to that very first day, remembering the soft pink and gold light flickering across the room in quiet laughter. I was afraid, I admitted honestly. But I understood something that many others in that room did not understand yet. Survival does not always belong to the strongest creature in the room. It does not always belong to the fastest one either. It belongs to the one who refuses to consider stopping, no matter how difficult things become. The hall grew quiet as my words settled over 400 young faces. I let the silence remain for a long moment before continuing. "Everything else, I can teach you here," I said. "Strength, technique, strategy, patience. All of these things can be taught through practice and time. But that final part, the part that keeps you moving when your body and mind both scream for you to stop, that part you must find within yourselves. Some of you will find it, many of you will not. That difference is exactly why people fear my training." A quiet voice from the back row finally asked the question I had been expecting. "What do they call you, sir?" I allowed the silence to answer first, letting the question hang in the air a little longer. "Ask your grandparents' instructors," I said calmly. "They will tell you." No one laughed this time. Instead, I saw something different in their eyes, something I recognized immediately, because I had felt it myself many years earlier. It was not fear alone, though fear was certainly present. It was curiosity, mixed with quiet respect, and perhaps even the smallest spark of determination. As I looked across that hall filled with new recruits from distant worlds, I thought once again about my own beginning, about the laughter that once filled that same kind of room. I no longer felt anger toward that memory. Instead, I felt something closer to gratitude. That laughter had pushed me toward discovering strength I never knew I carried within myself. I walked slowly among the rows of nervous young cadets, and studying their faces carefully. Somewhere among them I knew stood a future instructor, someone who would one day pass these same lessons on to another generation, just as Doran had done, just as I had done before him. My task was simply to help them discover that strength within themselves, the same way Commandant Yarrow had once helped me discover mine. Training would begin in the morning, and it would not be easy. It never was. But as I looked at those uncertain faces, I felt confident that some of them would rise beyond anything they currently believed themselves capable of achieving. They would learn, as I once learned, that true strength was never only about the body. It was about the will to continue, one more step, one more hour, one more day, long after everyone else believed it was impossible. And somewhere far across the galaxy, in academies I would never personally visit, my training methods continued quietly shaping new generations of soldiers, teaching them the same simple lesson I once learned in that very first hall. Strength alone never guarantees survival, but determination, patience, and the refusal to quit, those qualities could carry anyone through even the darkest and most difficult moments imaginable. That, more than anything else, was the true lesson I hoped every cadet would eventually carry with them, long after they left my training hall behind.